Chair, I can confirm you're live on YouTube.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for attending today's meeting of the Kingsland Area Committee. The Democratic Services Officer will now conduct a roll call to check who is present at the meeting. When she calls your name, could you please switch your microphone on and confirm your attendance by answering present? Emma, would you like to?
Councillor Bartry? No. Councillor Bone?
Present.
Councillor Collop?
Present.
We've got Councillor Colwell on Zoom under Standing Order 34.
Present.
Councillor Everett?
Present.
Councillor Hennigan?
Present.
And Councillor Jones?
Present.
Councillor Joyce? No. We've got Councillor Kemp on Zoom.
Present.
Councillor Lowe? Councillor Rust?
Present.
Councillor Sayers?
Present.
Councillor Ware?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have the Mark Whitmore, the Assistant Director for Health and Wellbeing and Public Protection, present, and we welcome external attendees, Inspector Ben Jarvis, to give a presentation on the RISE and the bus station. Please, may I remind members that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live via YouTube. By attending this meeting, you're given your permission to be recorded and streamed. Apologies for absence, Councillor Wilkinson. Minutes from the previous meeting. Does the committee agree that the minutes in the previous meeting held on the 23rd of January 25 are a correct record? Agreed.
Agreed.
Declarations of interest. Any members got anything to declare? Thank you. Urgent business, we have none. Members under Standing Order 34 is Councillor Cowell and Councillor Kemp. Chair's correspondence, I don't have any. So we'll take it over to Inspector Ben Jarvis to present their presentation on the RISE project.
So, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me back. Hopefully, you'll still say that at the end once you've listened to my voice for this and the next presentation. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the RISE project in North Lynn. I'll go as if people haven't heard from me before, although looking around the room, I know several people are kind of heavily entrenched in what we're doing and already can kind of see the difference. The RISE project is effectively an extension of something called Clear, Hold, Build. Clear, Hold, Build is a military concept whereby, effectively talking in military terms, the troops look to clear an area of insurgents, and then instead of the traditional kind of clear and then just move on, look to hold that area and then look to further build upon that area that they've cleared and held. It moves away from the traditional kind of look at us, look at the results we've had and then kind of move on, but actually look towards allowing communities and giving communities the tools that they need to be more self-sufficient and to work with themselves and understand who the partners are involved in that and how each one of those can help. So if you move that to the North Lynn context, throughout public health work and kind of general work across the not only the county but beyond, North Lynn has been identified as an area of lower attainment and a lower life expectancy, to name a couple of things. Just to give kind of a rough stat that I like to throw out, which I think kind of encapsulates where we're at with this, is you are likely to die 10 years earlier if you live in North Lynn comparative to if you live in South Wootton, which we all know from living in the area, the geographics of that is less than a mile as the crow flies, and yet the health and kind of general attainment, the disparities are very clear to see. So what this is saying is not that there's no great work going on in North Lynn or beyond. However, it's a way of bringing this all together and recognising actually there's an organised crime footprint and there's some crime footprint here, amongst other kind of things. Let's put this all together. Let's galvanise all of our partners to really bring something new to the area, and ultimately applying the clear, hold and build foundation. Look to, okay, clear, and this clearly where I sit, clearing all of this, but then also looking to how do we hold and how do we build this community, which more and more from doing work within North Lynn, you can see is a fantastic, well-knit community and with some really, really great things there. So how do we bring people the tools to make this an even better community than what it already is? And that brings us on to kind of where we are today. So the clear phase has been going on since April last year, really. So we're nearly at the year stage. And looking at these, you can see up on the PowerPoint, you've got 60 arrests of nominals associated with OCGs, organised crime networks, and that's mainly for drug supply, possession, weapons offences, just to name a few. Over £30,000 worth of cash seized and over £30,000 worth of controlled substances recovered. That includes heroin, crack cocaine, cannabis and ketamine. 310,000 illicit cigarettes or rolling tobacco seized with over £70,000 street value, and weapons including zombie knives, tasers, and even an XL bully, which had to be seized and destroyed as part of the ongoing work within the area. But again, then you start to bring in the partners, so joint visits with partners, including work around the Bentinck Arms public house, and more recently with trading standards, following up on some intel regarding premises selling counterfeit vodka to juveniles in the area. Policing numerous action days, and again, a number of arrests, including a couple of months ago, a really high profile arrest as part of the organised crime network as a key nominal from the North Lynn area. The creation of a Crime Stoppers zone in the North Lynn area, again supported by this leaflet drop, talking about the survey, which I'm going to come on to very shortly, because that kind of forms the cornerstone of where we are now, but really supported by the Crime Stoppers charity as well, and an enforcement coordination group to capture the work that we're already doing, but also bring partners together to understand what others are doing, because part of this is not working in silo, but instead working as one. So if we can bring people together to do that, that becomes really, really helpful in moving forward. Next slide, please. I love a good photo slide, and this is no exception. A couple of photos on here I'll just point out as kind of the most poignant ones. The second one along the top, the machetes, these were in a grab bag, one of the handles sort of hanging down out of a loft hatch in a property in North Lynn, when officers conducted a warrant there. Again, clearly someone had some other nefarious purpose for hiding them in the loft. But again, kind of indicative of, this is going on in the streets that we kind of walk and live through each day. The next one along, which may look like a shed or otherwise, is actually the back of a transit van, which has been kitted out with shelving and effectively forms a mobile shop, which is, again, illicit tobacco vapes and cannabis vapes, all of which are illegal. Been taken off the streets. Again, this is where a lot of your street value comes from, but also then uncovers kind of other organised crime networks who've got a footprint in that North Lynn area. Lots of bikes on there. One of the things that come out of the survey, a you ask, we do type of survey, which again I shall explain shortly, is that there's an issue with motorbikes and bikes around the area. Particularly the one on the left-hand side isn't a motorbike, but is actually an electric bike, almost silent, but still capable of speeds up to nearly 70 miles an hour. And the one in the middle, which looks like it's got a cushion across the crossbar, is exactly that. It's an electric bike capable of speeds about 55 miles an hour. And that cushion doubles as a child seat. And whilst officers were patrolling the area and doing the door knocking surveys, found someone riding with a child on that bike. And they were obviously dealt with accordingly. But again, it's this perceived issue versus what the actual issue is. And again, being in the place to do something about it. And as much as deal with someone as we do with the police, also educate so we can move forward and we bring foster this community as we go forward. And remiss of me not to talk about the knife, which was seized from a 17-year-old during the stop search, being carried in his backpack. Now, again, we talk around dealing with this as the police and dealing with it criminally, which we have done, but also there's a huge deal for education here and kind of supporting that wider piece moving forward. Next slide, please. Moving on to the hold and the build phase. So clearly, all of these come hand in hand, and the hold and the build are much more community facing. As I've already said, there's a wonderful community in North Lynn, so it's almost jumping on all of these great things that are going on and assisting with the steering. It's not taking hold and steering; it's assisting with the steering, because this is never going to be a you need this, we're going to do this type approach. It's going to be a collaborative approach with the community. You can see. We've already got these really strong partners working there, and through engaging with the local school around citizenship style meetings, it's really about socialising this community ownership concept from a young age, because the coined the phrase children are the future, but genuinely they are in this case, because you look at kind of the demographic of who lives and remains living in North Lynn, and you can see families growing up throughout generations, all of whom live within that footprint. The creation of the logo, which you've seen on the opening slide, and you see at the bottom of each one of these slides, not the Norfolk Constabulary one, the RISE logo. This was created by Targeted Youth Support Services, working at the Beacon Church with children who come to the Pizza Project every Friday night, to recognise this brand moving forward, because the concept clear, hold, build isn't something that's community friendly and something that kind of rolls off the tongue. Whereas RISE, the word RISE is empowering, it's uplifting, it's also an acronym. With each one of the letters standing for something. The colour scheme is the King's Lynn colour scheme, as is my slide. And even the nautical callbacks to the fishing days of old, with the wheel and the rope. And even the star, which you can't see on that slide, on each one of the wheel arms, calling back to the North Star pub, which was once upon a time in the North Lynn area. The community survey, which is really pivotal to kind of moving on to the next step, because you've got all this public health data, you've got this data, and you've got general public perception on what North Lynn is like. But the next thing has got to be speaking to people in the community to find out what they think about it and what they feel they need. And this, again, we've gone out to the news, BBC Radio Norfolk, to highlight the great work that's ongoing across not only this area, but wider too. And you've got Charity Walk, which I spoke about last time I was here, the London to Lynn Charity Walk, which again, the street party afterwards was fantastic to see kind of how far we've come in the community, to see everyone come out and welcome home these heroes. So I'm looking at two people in the room, but these people who've come back and are doing something wonderful for the area and recognising the worth in the area as this project continues. Next one, please. So the survey, I've spoken about it effectively as part of this. We want to go out and talk to the community. So over a period of 8 weeks, 6 full days, along with letter drops with QR codes, went out to all of North Lynn. Around 31 hours, officers and other members of the RISE community were knocking on everyone's doors within North Lynn to conduct an in-person survey. At the end of the survey, it was 653 at the time I wrote this, and were completed by the community. Now, looking at kind of the makeup of the community, that falls just under 10% of the community, which actually isn't a bad return comparative to the Reach and general other surveys. As well as doing those in person, have also been conducted at the Beacon Church, Discovery Centre, Green Park Academy. We had the voice of the youth, citizen talks at Green Park Academy, inputs at the College of West Anglia, and then structured sessions during these Friday night pizza projects at the Beacon Church. And we managed to get age ranges all the way between under 10 all the way to over 75. And there's a long list of stakeholders up there, and I won't read through every single one because it's just a long list, but you can see from looking at that, there are a great number of people who are all invested in this, coming from all corners of the stakeholders within the community. Fire particularly have also managed to kind of get on board, and as well as conducting the surveys as another visible face within the community, have also managed to conduct several fire safety checks. And again, it's bringing this ownership back to the community around your own self-worth moving forward. The Neighbourhood Watch scheme is nearly there. We're working with them just to make sure we get that set up correctly. The Crime Stoppers zone, as I've reported. And then the increased presence in the area throughout the survey period was really, really helpful, not only to stop people with children on cushions on their bikes, but also just being there. You know, one of the main things that people talk about is not seeing enough police officers. And again, it's that push forward to say, we are here, and we are working in your area, and we do care about what happens here. Next one, please. This was fantastic, this survey, and it's called Challenging Perceptions, this slide, because it genuinely did. You can kind of mention North Lynn and people either pull a face or have their own view on what it may embody. And the questions that we asked were done in such a way to really elicit as much information as we can, yet make them simple enough that the information is worthwhile. And it became really apparent early on that the questions were challenging all of the perceptions that we had. There were lots of good and worthwhile questions, but if you just click once for me, please. This question always drew a smile, and there's a degree of expectation around what this is going to bring, which is using one word to describe North Lynn. Now, again, we think about this and we think about what perceptions people have got, and the one word that people are thinking of may have 4 letters, or maybe some derivation of that. But if you click again for me, please. Nearly 40% of the responses that came out of the survey were positive responses, and another 33% were neutral responses. So actually, there's not as much negativity there. It's summing it up in a very simple case, but there's not as much negativity there as perhaps people perceive that there is. And if you click one more time for me, you'll have to wait till later in the presentation to find out whether one word you might be thinking of fits in the responses. Next slide, please. First of all, we started with some validation data. So this is to understand the demographic, and you can see immediately on that age chart that there is a gap. The 11 to 24-year-olds, there is a gap. And this is where clearly doing these types of things, you start to focus your work. So we've already got some things in play around consideration for youth councils or extra youth work, and targeting the targeted youth support service to really get in and engaged with the youth. Because as I've said, these are the next group of people who are going to be coming up and fostering this ownership in the community. You can see we are slightly more females than males, but again, that just falls out of the general work in the area. And probably the one thing this showed me in the validation data is the street name bit, is that none of my team can spell any of the streets that they went and did this work on. We've seen many derivations of St Edmundsbury Road, for example, which again just takes a little bit of time to kind of work through the data. Next slide, please. So again, I'll just go through, I'll whiz through some of this. What do you like about North Lynn? Creation of a word cloud, and there'll be a word cloud for each one of these. And the bigger the word, the more often people have said it. You can see that the big word in the middle there is community. Next slide, please. I realise the setup for this isn't great. You're going to have to click a few times for me, please. There's 7 words on there, if we can get to the bottom there. So the words: close, community, quiet, town, people, good, and nice. Some nice words there. And community and close community. The community is close to the town. It's a quiet community. The people in the community are nice. There's some really positivity around all of that. If you move on again for me, please. What do you think could be added or brought back to make North Lynn better? And again, you can see the words there. Big one, community. The next one being centre in there. And again, we know of the community centre, and that's just one of the things that's been talking about. Next slide, please, if you can cycle through the 7 words for me. Community, centre, children, kids, parks, play, and park. There's a theme there. Community didn't always feature with community centre. It was the sense of community or otherwise. So people really want that. I'll stop and tell a very quick story because it's humorous and it shows that the innocence of kind of the kids that we're talking to. So whilst we were doing the work in the school, all of the kids sat around with an iPad and they had this out in front of them. They were answering the questions, and we sort of did a guided talk through all of these. We came to this question and all the kids really thought about this, and we kind of G'd them up and thought, right, what do you think we can bring back to make North Lynn better? And the kid put his hand up. They said, the dodo was the answer. And this was a 10-year-old child. The dodo. So it's okay, you're kind of understanding the context of this question, but we can't do that because they're extinct. So, okay, so he wasn't deterred. He went back, thought about it again, and again he said, sir, yes, monkeys. Okay, I love this idea, but think about more what you want that's going to enrich your community. Perhaps monkeys would enrich the community, but equally, but perhaps not. But it's nice, and again, those are moments that certainly I won't forget, and hopefully they won't forget either, just how much this means and where we're going with this. And if we do see the emergence of monkeys in North Lynn, you know where that came from. Next slide, please. So what do you not like about North Lynn? Again, you can see from this word cloud, there's a lot for the police here. Motorbikes. drugs. Can't do much about the people, which is the big words on there. But you look, you're speeding, drugs, and things like that. If we can go on to the next slide, please, and just work our way through those words. So what do you not like about North Lynn? People, motorbikes, drugs, road, drug, area, and bikes. So as you can see from the earlier photos, motorbikes and bikes are on there as well as just drugs and drug. And the people usually moves in with people who do drugs, people who ride motorbikes, that sort of thing. Why people's come up there more often. I don't think it's a general dislike for people in North Lynn. Next one, please. Is there anything you could do to make North Lynn an even better community? And again, community is the big word there. If you go onto the next slide for me, please, and just work your way through those. So the words that came out of this were community, people, help, nothing, litter, events, and beacon. Now, those of you that heard this before know where I'm going with this. But the word that really jumps out from me there is nothing. And you know, we're asking people in their community, what can you bring to your community to make it even better? And the fourth top answer there was nothing. It means you've got a whole lot of people in this community who don't see the worth in their own work and what they're doing in their community. And that to me is the word that really brings home the focus of where the work needs to be, is empowering the community. Say, you do have something to bring. Look at the top three answers: community, people, and help. That's just your starting point. And I think it's really about addressing the nothing as we go forward in this. It really gave me a nice steer. Next one, please. This is the one. Using one word, describe North Lynn. Again, the overwhelming word there is good. If you look really closely, you can see some of the words that I'm not going to say out loud. And if you move on to the next slide for me, please, and we'll work our way through that. Good, quiet, okay, home, community, rough, and nice. Again, of the 7 top words, 5 are outwardly positive, 1 is mid-ground, and only 1 is negative. So actually, here's your perception challenge right here. The one word to describe North Lynn, it's majority positive. And as you can see at the bottom, the word that you're thinking of was 12th in the list and didn't feature as often as perhaps perception might say it would. So those are kind of the core questions. I've got the whiz through of the other ones. If you can go on to the next slide for me, please. Each one of these were kind of a more open question. And I spent painful night shifts going through and grading each one as a positive, a negative, or a neutral for all of the next questions. With no bias as much as I could help. But ultimately, you still look at the perception of all of this. Nearly 42% of people had something positive to say around crime and antisocial behaviour in North Lynn. The negatives are the one ultimately I'm as much interested in, to realise where we've still got some work to do. Again, it's understanding what people think, and actually using the address data, we can then drill down into who has something negative to say about crime and antisocial behaviour and who's saying something positive. You know, if you live on Columbia Way, are you really positive? Whereas if you live on St Edmundsbury Road, are you really negative? Is this where the work needs to be? So again, it's really, really helpful. Next one, please. Housing. Again, it's almost a 3-way split there. Again, you look at the answers to these and the negativity, you can almost see on there where one person is negative about housing or otherwise, you can see that reverberation out of people who kind of hear the same sorts of thing and get influenced by that. Whereas actually, I don't think that's often the case. You also realise that there's a lot of people who own their own home in North Lynn and have either got something positive or very neutral because they own their own home and they don't see kind of the housing as an issue that they've become affected by. Next one, please. Green spaces didn't lend itself to a pie chart, but ultimately there is an overwhelming sentiment here, as is shown by what could you add or bring back to North Lynn, which is more parks, more green spaces, more places for children to play. Interesting skewed view, in respect of people's comments. So when we're doing the survey, someone told us that their child was out playing on the road and a motorbike came herring by and nearly hit one of them. And they identified this as being an issue with motorbikes. However, actually, my question back would be, why wasn't that child able to play on a green space or a park or somewhere else, whereby they wouldn't even be exposed to the danger? Yes, we realise motorbikes are an issue, but we can work a way to not expose people to that sort of danger. It just became really interesting that you see different people's views around all of that. Next one, please. Education was a big winner. Green Park Academy came out really, really well. in respect of this. A lot of the neutrality here was people telling me that they're either retired or don't have children. And the negativity were very kind of specific cases or people who had bad experiences with the education system. But the school clearly has made a difference here. And again, we did ask a lot of children. And again, clearly a lot of children have something very positive to say about the school they go to, which again, you look at building blocks within the community. This is exactly one of those things you want to build upon. Next one, please. Employment. This was a really odd question, and I would rephrase this if I were to do this again, because it listed some different answers. Some people took this as, if I live in North Lynn, can I get a job in North Lynn? Some people took it as, if I live in North Lynn, can I get a job full stop? And other people took it as the wider, what is the job market like? So there's a variation of kind of answers here. Interestingly, not a lot of people made reference to the fact that the North Lynn industrial estate would be less than a 5-minute walk from some of these properties that we visited, and didn't recognise it as a potential employer. So again, you kind of look at where's this work needed, and this is one of the options that we're looking at. And again, the employment one, a lot of people were retired or didn't work for whatever reasons, hence the neutrality on that one. Next one, please. Healthcare, both physical and mental health in North Lynn. Again, not as much positivity there and quite a lot of negativity. And it won't surprise anyone in the room to hear that the largest word on the word cloud for this one was appointment. And often prefaced with can't get one, or very difficult to get one, or what's the point in trying, are just some of the examples. So that's where a lot of that negativity has come from. But this one was really interesting as well around perception. I've already talked about South Wootton versus North Lynn and the health disadvantages and recognising that. Some people thought that the moving of St James's surgery to Edward Benefit Way was a massive plus, a massive positive, because we've now got a surgery that we can walk to. Whereas people in the same area saw it as a negative, and in fact said, why have South Wootton got another doctor's surgery and we haven't got one? Whereas ultimately it's still that 10-minute walk, but again, it's that perception of people see, what some are getting and some are not. And that's the type of barrier we need to break down. And I'm sure they can talk about it once they get an appointment. Next one, please. Transport was the big winner of the day, however. People in North Lynn love the buses. This was a lot about buses. The negativity was just a little bit about transport being motorbikes again, and a little bit about the state of some of the roads. But again, you only have to kind of stand in the Beacon Church for a period of time to see the bus stop several times there and sort of around just St Edmundsbury Road alone to realise actually the network is really good. Not as many people spoke about congestion on the roads and trying to get out onto Gaywood Road during college times and things like that as I thought they were going to. But again, perception challenge. Next one, please. And the final one here is what would make you more physically active in North Lynn? We're working really closely with Active Norfolk to bring place expansion to the area. And part of this is understanding where physical activity fits in people's lives. And again, you look at this word cloud, better parks, active activities, things like that. And actually, when you drill into the data and you look outside of simply the word cloud, you can see the general focuses. And Active Norfolk have been really able to sort of weaponise this data to their own ends, to sculpt their own work as well, to assist with their place expansion work, to bring more activity to North Lynn as part of this overall enrichment. Next one, please. So what next? And if you can click once for me, please. Clearly, the biggest thing that we need to work on here is the nothing. Not nothing itself, but the nothing. And addressing that nothing. Because if you click again for me, and probably one more time, these three words sat above that. And it's again, it comes back to the point I made earlier, which is allowing that community that recognise they are a community, the empowerment to come out and be those people that help. And that's where we're working forward to next. And the actual next is we obviously will continue with the clear activity, but we're already looking at forums and places to move this forward, as well as bringing what's called asset-based community development to the area, which effectively is everything I've just spoken about. It's recognising all these wonderful assets that we've got within the community, and how do we empower those assets to build the community from the inside out. Rather than us looking from the outside and building it that way. And then any questions is the next slide and the end of that presentation. If anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Ben. Councillor Hannigan.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was very lucky to go out in one of the evenings where you did a questionnaire. Councillor Jones took me out under his wing, and through that and other activities I've done in North Lynn, what has really impressed me about is the sense of pride and how much people actually like living in their community. And it's amazing that you're doing this work to make, you know, to get rid of the antisocial behaviour, maybe the crime or whatever, to make it better. And obviously it needs investment as well. I think, you know, that is absolutely key. I'm quite sure it links in very well to Marmot Place, which I won't
Yes.
touch on because that's Councillor Rust's area.
It's remiss of me not to
yeah.
mention that, in fairness, because it does link in really nicely, and you start to see where all the bits fit in.
Yeah, so just my question is, obviously this is quite resource intensive. You've had to put an awful lot of work into it. Will it be used will you replicate it in other areas? Because we've got Fairstead, South Lynn, I would say parts of Gaywood
I
Clough.
thought that's where your question might be going.
Yeah.
Again, perhaps I should have covered that. So the model is very portable. The model itself is portable. And again, I had this discussion the other day. We managed to shoehorn in effectively into some excellent work that was already going on. And there was a really nice foundation there. And I think in order to move to other places, we've got to identify where the foundation is to then start to build upon that foundation. But yes, absolutely. And you can see the differences. But not to sound corny, but it does take a village to do all of that. And I think there's got to be people that are kind of invested throughout all of that organisational work to get to that point. But in simple answer, yes, it is portable. And yes, it's something that we're still in the pilot phases of across the country of clear hold build. When that starts to embed and we start to get to the work and then the final points of that, we can see how that fits long term for other places such as the wards you just mentioned.
Yeah. So just to follow up, I mean, councillors should be the link into their own communities as well, really, and should be able to work alongside you to identify where the need is greatest and point you in the right direction.
And I think effectively, I'd probably call that community mapping effectively, and that was a really key part on getting started. Where we are is mapping and understanding what's in the community, who's there, and how they contribute, so we can do exactly as you said, sort of link into that community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collop.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions. You said about a surgery in North Lynn. Do they not count St Augustine surgery then? That's the first question. And the area where the old community centre be, virtually opposite the beacon, that looks disgusting. Are they doing anything with that at all? So in answer to the first question, it's you say we do as a community. This is the general perception of people. So I can't answer that any further. But in regards to the second bit, we are speaking to Freebridge as one of as the owner of the community centre area to understand how we can best use that. Because I recognise what you said, and you're not the first person to have said it. But it's ongoing work.
Thank you, Councillor Rust.
In relation to the people can't do anything, it was one of the things that was raised by Sir Michael Marmot about inequality of agency. People don't feel that they have the power or resources to either do anything about themselves or anything, you know, to improve the issue. And it is hoped that place expansion and Marmot will go somewhere to improving that, and also the asset-based community development. If we can identify key individuals within the area, they might be able to make a difference. But the Beacon Church is very much a focus, and John and Vicky at the Beacon are very, very community minded. They live in their community, they work in their community. And I did suggest that John or Vicky might be ideal to sit on the town deal board when it goes through its changes, because they are just so much embedded in their community. But you know, the survey itself and the work that you've done with Rise is a great start. Like you said, you know, you've practically cleared it, and now it is about holding and building on it. So thank you very much for that work.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Inspector Jarvis for all the cooperation work. It has been an absolute pleasure to come out with you, door knocking, but just working together and all the other things we're doing together just helps make that community stronger and better. So we'd like to thank you for all.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. I wish I'd ended on this one now, but got to talk about the other thing, yeah?
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Joyce?
Yes, I paint a very nice picture of North Lynn. A few years ago, it was like South Lynn, it was a war zone. And one person did actually get stuck into it. She's no longer with us, she passed away a few years ago. It was North Lynn Action Group. They ran bingos, they ran all sorts of things. And they actually did bring down the situation. Now, a friend of mine was the head of the company that advised Mayor Giuliani. Remember Mayor Giuliani in New York? And what he said was the biggest thing that brought down the crime had nothing to do with the police. Absolutely nothing to do with them. Oh yeah, they stopped the squeegee merchants because they arrested them for jaywalking. But everything else, no, nothing to do with the police. It was the fact that the housing corporation fixed the central heating because he took people out of the potential. They could not be a victim sitting at home. Obviously, they could be aggravated burglary, but that was rare, even there. It took people away from the crime area. And that, to a large extent, is what Linda did. And Jimmy Yallop, yeah, I know people have said bad things about Jimmy, but Jimmy was the best babysitter for a lot of miles, and he really did a lot of good there. And that has gone. You know, Linda has passed, Jimmy has retired. But it is a fact that you do come back to the broken windows situation. It doesn't matter how wealthy your area is. If there's a broken window one day, it will have a mate the next day. You have to fix it. And there's many, many things that the Borough Council and the County Council and the Environment Agency, for that matter, can do, but they don't. They will claim they do what they can, but it's just a simple thing. You go down a road, and if it's clear, it's weed-free, somehow it stays weed-free. The weeds don't stay there. But if they are there, the litter collects, and then it starts going downhill. That's the key. The police can go around and, you know, arrest certain drug dealers, and to be honest, you're not arresting the main dealers. But yeah, that's what really needs to be happening. And a lot of it does rely on the Borough Council doing its very basic stuff, like cleaning the roads. I mean, road sweepings, the Borough Council actually gets paid for road sweepings. They get recycling credits, crazy as it may seem, and those sort of things. Keep the streets clean, keep the environment clean, give freebies their due. I don't always, but give them their due. They do now fix the windows. And so, you know, the windows, broken windows don't breed, but that's what needs to happen. It is about all those agencies putting in their resources and keeping those resources there. Just a fair fact, the police have a beat Bobby. Now, most people don't know who the beat Bobby is, but they'll ask somebody, or they'll look on the internet and have a look to see who it is if they've got an issue to raise. But who's their street cleaner? They don't know, because there isn't one. But that's it. Now, would you agree? This is the question. Would you agree that following, you know, whether it's Mayor Giuliani or various others who have actually done this, that it takes, you know, it said it takes a community to raise a child. Well, it takes a lot of agencies to help that community raise that child.
I couldn't agree more. perhaps, unless I've missed the way that's been presented, that's exactly what we're doing. We're bringing all of those agencies together. And I sit here not as just a police officer, but as a member of this RISE community, who are looking to pull all of the stakeholders, as you rightly talk about, to understand where everyone fits within this and how they contribute to exactly what you said. It is the broken window syndrome, and how they contribute towards making this a better place and making this a place for people to be proud of, so that we get to the point where it feels like a nice community as well.
But it requires one or two from that community to step forward. That's what it needs.
Yep.
And that is the difficult thing, because, well, I'm not going to stick my head above the parapet because your man down the road is going to give me a thick ear, or maybe worse. And you know, that's the thing, is actually building the confidence. And that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time.
No. And that is what the asset-based community development is that we're talking about. It's using that framework to identify exactly the people that you're talking about, those in the community that are willing to put their head above the parapet, are willing to go that extra mile and start to build that community from within the community. Those people, exactly as you've identified, the Jimmies who you've referred to, would effectively be, if you look at the model, and you go back to when they were around and doing those bits, they would be those community builders. They would be those community champions. So again, it's looking for that next round of people to do exactly that.
Thank you. I'm going to interject there because I'm North Lynn born and bred, come from a generational fishing family, and was brought up Clubby Way. My green space is now Green Park School, which I welcome for that because the benefit it has brought to that community. We're very proud people. We don't stand. We had rubbish left, and the council wasn't clearing it in Low Road, and it didn't take much engagement. And those bags had been left there for 2 weeks, so they was crawling with disco rice, and it was a really unpleasant task. But the people of North End took to that and cleared that on a regular basis for a period of probably over a year to get that. So I will defend the community. We are proud people, and if we're engaged, and I think the cause of that was people attended snap meetings that wasn't getting there. And the current environmental portfolio holder was very detriment to the community in North Lynn, and that was enough to enrage us to take direct action. And we do, and there's a credit to the Councillor Jones for his involvement in North Lynn and all the work he's done to engage the community there. So we can be easily motivated. You put a brilliant example, Councillor Joyce, with Jimmy who really did engage the young people and did do a lot. He did do a real benefit, and it was youth services, which has now been replicated by the Pizza Project in North Lynn and the work of the Beacon. So here will be generation shifts, and here will be new lit community leaders come up and change. But North Lynn is a very good and proud community. Hence, this has probably taken place in North Lynn because of that community spirit. I do have a couple of speakers. I've got Councillor Kemp on Standing Order 34, and then Councillor West, which I'll come back to you. So, Councillor Kemp, we can see your documents.
Yeah, something has happened. So anyway, yeah, well, my point was this: it sometimes takes just small steps and towards people feeling more empowered that they can change something in their community. And in South Lynn, we did some work with public health a few years ago, which was mums with either expecting mums or with children under 5 going around the shops to find out whether affordable food, healthy food, was accessible. And out of that, we did some more work, and this led to Purfleet Pantry, the affordable food hub, and to a healthy community action plan, which involved enhancing some of the play areas, and then of course the walking and cycling area, Hardings Way. But looking at the work that you've done, the good work you've done in North Lynn, and the engagement for the 11 to 18 or 19-year-olds, I wondered if there'd been any thought and consideration given to the Kick the Dust project, which is a joint borough and county project to involve young people, sometimes young people who are more in need of help than others, develop digital skills and communication skills and even work-related skills through heritage in Lynn. And I wondered whether any thought would be given to that, because that is the sort of age group, 11 to 21s, which that group Kick the Dust caters for.
All right, so it's not what I'm particularly familiar with. However, we have generated a list of projects exactly like the one you just referred to, among with other things. So I've written it down, Councillor Kemp, and I will, if it's not on the list and been explored, I will make sure it is.
Brilliant, lovely, thank you.
Thank you. That's the rest.
Yeah, in response to Councillor Joyce and the looking for community champions, as I referred to, John and Vicky Price live in their community and they are a part of that community. And Food for Thought has been running at the Beacon Church, where we've had people who also live in that community, and they've attended and participated and got involved. So there is work that is currently taking place to strengthen the community and to identify community challenges. But just because John and Vicky are part of the clergy doesn't mean that they should be discounted for the positive impact that they can have and the way that they have built a community around the Beacon. And I'm sure Councillor Jones would agree. And also in respect of the community centre, I will raise it again with Freebridge when I next meet with them, because last time I was at the Beacon Church, they had Freebridge vans parked there, so that it is doing something, but it isn't necessarily fulfilling the potential that it could have. However, the Beacon Church is now very much a focus in that area, and I don't necessarily think that would want to be lost or replaced, but perhaps, you know, there might be something more.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce.
Just to come back to Councillor Rust, if she or the inspector wants a good advisor, there's one already working for the council. He's a parking attendant, or parking warden, whatever his name is, Kevin. He used to be Linda's right-hand man. He actually sat in a bath of beans to raise money. I mean, they did all sorts of daft things. But yeah, you know, he knows what went on. He knows it from the inside. He knows how difficult it was. Of course, at the time, he had known one or two of the gangsters down there. He's probably got too old to know about them now. But yeah, just pure advice. I appreciate, you know, vicars do try. I mean, down in South Lynn, Father Ken did what he could. Then he found other interests and left. But yeah, it is about using what's already there and just listening to people, just listening to the stories, and you pick information out of that story that can be used. It makes it, you know, 95% of it may be totally irrelevant. It's just that 5%. It's that little nugget that does it. They ran bingos. They ran youth clubs. I have to tell you, some of the people who were involved with the youth clubs, their families were not saints, but they behaved themselves when mother was there running the youth club. Very seldom it was dad. But yeah, it is about this. It is about actually getting the people in. When Southland had a community centre, it wasn't the saints who actually put it all together. You might call them the sinners, but they want to do it. They want to get involved. The only thing is, they don't want to be police checked for doing something or other. They don't want to be interviewed. They will do it. They will do it for free. But they don't want to go through all the red tape that has to. They don't mind, you know, sitting on a committee with a policeman if they'll behave themselves while they're there. That's what they do. Whether you like it or not, Ben, that's what happens. But and they will go off, and it isn't always the saints who are the most willing to help, because often they don't have the skills and they don't have the context.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. I see no further hands up, so I'd like to thank you for all the work. Obviously, I see that benefit. I no longer live in North Lynn, but I know I was brought up, so I can see the really good work and the outcome that has come from this. Just a couple of points I'd like to raise, not really to do with RISE, but it's something which has slipped my mind, which is just reminding me when we was talking about green space, which might be something Councillor Rust and Mark you can pick up on. When we was looking at the open spaces a few years ago, Salters Road development was promised 30 grand section 106 money for improvements to the Edinburgh Street car park, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. And still the play equipment was there when I was a child. So just making a point that needs to be followed up on and looked into, because that would be a big improvement to the pit, and we was promised that for North Lynn. So there's no further questions on that. So it's over to you, Ben, for the next item. Your presentation on the Kings Lynn bus station. Thank you.
Thank you. Just remember, if you start to get tired of my voice, you did invite me. So, so I'll talk to you about the bus station, which I'll start by saying this, and I suppose it's really a follow-on from the RISE stuff, which is I and everyone realises there is an issue at the bus station, an issue being in small letters at the moment. And in spite of what I'm about to say, I realise I'm not going to sit here and say we've solved it, or this is as good as it's going to get, or anything like that. But I think it's important to contextualise the situation at present based on the available data. So this is quite a data heavy presentation. Next one, please. And so first of all, this is investigations from May 2023 until a couple of weeks ago, 2025. Firstly, you can see that the trend line is heading downwards. And secondly, actually, if you look at whilst the bars appear high in some places, if you look at the numbers, they go up in twos. So in January and February, we had 3 investigations or crimes, as you may refer to them as days of old, reported in each month in the bus station, and that's identified as the geographic area and the bus station and immediately around. I've researched January 2024 because that seems like a huge outlier to me. 4 linked to the same incident involving the same person. It was a domestic assault, a criminal damage, 2 assault polices, and then even a further child protection investigation tacked onto that. So that's one incident. And the others are adult or child protection investigations, which effectively are like if a child missing person has turned up at the bus station as a transport hub, having come from elsewhere, as an example, and that would be recorded so that can be sent on to social services or otherwise. And there were a couple of criminal behaviour order breaches as well, which again feature throughout here. But again, those are things that we work on some of the persistent offenders in and around the town centre to limit their behaviour, which then they go ahead and breach. Aside from that 1 month, there's never been a month of more than 6 investigations. To give you context, so talking about January 2024, in which we've got 10 recorded in the bus station, there were 796 reported investigations for Kings Lynn as a whole, as identified geographically. That's just over 1% of Kings Lynn investigations, and other months have seen higher investigation numbers and lower investigations taking place in the bus station. And so again, you can see kind of percentage-wise where that sits in Kings Lynn as a whole. On to the next one for me, please. This one relates to antisocial behaviour call data. This is, I'll pause whilst it catches up. Thank you. This is call data. So these are calls into our force control room whereby antisocial behaviour, or ASB, is tagged on the CAD call. I mean, there is some variation here because you've got differing call takers who may put their own perspective on whether or not they believe it to be antisocial behaviour or relates to something else. But as you can see, the numbers here are incredibly low. The very fact that January has 0 antisocial behaviour calls and yet the highest number of crimes shows that a lot of these investigations actually come from police generated stuff, comes from patrols, and we happen upon things within the bus station or otherwise. And I'll come on to what we're doing in the bus station and the importance of those patrols. Though that could be one reason as to why. And again, the numbers at the side, we've never had more than 4 antisocial behaviour calls into the bus station. Next one, please. There's a lot of colour on this. There's a lot of numbers. However, it's helpful in identifying the total percentage of the crime types. And this is over that 2-year period. We're talking about May 23 to March 25, so nearly 2 years. Save you having to go into microscopic detail and look at each of the colours. And the largest one on there is assault and ABH, followed by public order. So public order, your general drunken, shouty, leery behaviour or otherwise. A lot of those are often committed together and form part of that ongoing stuff. But as I've said before, you've also got child protection investigations, which is the third most common. And again, you look at how they are generated and why they're generated. Call back to May 2023, when we were still dealing with youth antisocial behaviour, not only in the town centre, but in the bus station particularly. Every child who we would have dealt with would have had a child protection investigation raised by virtue of the fact that they're under 16. So actually, you kind of look and you can start to figure out why for some of these things, not for all of them. But for some of those things, and you start to put that into a little bit more context. Next one, please. So, ongoing work. And I think the most important thing to say, not only about the bus station, but as a general narrative of crime and criminality, is that actually often perception of crime, it can actually be a lot worse than people actually being victims of crime or otherwise, because people become too fearful to go to areas or otherwise. And I think some of that is happening in the bus station because it's a large transport hub in the middle of a busy town. And as such, it pulls a whole lot of visitors to that location. And when things do happen, a lot of people see them, and it is something that talks about. And we talked about this in the RISE presentation. Perception is often a really dangerous. It's a dangerous thing because you build the wrong perceptions of these things. And as I said, I'm not saying for one second that this is as good as it's going to get or otherwise. But equally, we are responding on a risk-based response based on all of the numbers, all of the data, and kind of what we're seeing on a day-to-day. The pictures obviously all mean something. So the officer presence is vitally important. And whilst I appreciate that's actually a photo on the high street, the one on the bus station was very old, because it's the best one that was taken. But this officer presence is really, really helpful. The Borough Council CCV are excellent, as are the street rangers, as are the BID, as are even the street cleaners. And this community and the shop owners and everyone who works in the shops, working together to recognise again where everyone's place is in all of this. The shoplifting, particularly the lady in the bottom corner. This was a lady who'd been across basically most of the country, stealing to order, and was picked up in King's Lynn, and that was no accident. You may well have seen in December, BBC, ITV, and Sky were all in Lynn to look at our very good anti-shoplifting practices. And it comes back down to that community work, that partnership work with everybody, and how we can replicate that throughout. Officers, that also means that officers are around the town, and they are doing at the patrols, and particularly encompassing the bus station. The partnership working, again, the photo at the top, this is from Up Wonderland, which is our shoplifting initiative in December. However, all of these are retailers, all these people who are sort of stakeholders within the town. And again, all understanding a group of people that are incredibly proud of the place that they work and that most of them live. And again, galvanising them and effectively weaponising them for all of our own good as we go forward. The cannabis plants on the right-hand side. So again, these were discovered whilst officers were policing the nighttime economy on New Year's Eve. But again, that proactivity doesn't stop. whilst deployed out on nighttime economy work, officers still had enough about them to be literally sniffing around and happen upon something else as well. So be assured that whilst things are still happening, there is still work ongoing in there as well. And I talked a little bit around civil orders and CBOs, for example, criminal behaviour orders. The Operation Partnership team, who are one of the teams under my command in Lynn, are working incredibly hard to try and get as many CBOs as they possibly can on these prolific offenders, because it is so limiting for this antisocial behaviour. Dispersal orders, I authorise a dispersal order every week, every weekend, usually for the nighttime economy, which bleeds nicely into the weekends too, to deal with those days whereby we get a lot of people. Today's been no exception. The first day the sun has come out, I've been to the bus station myself today to deal with minor issues. But again, it's addressing them in a human way as much as anything else. It comes around to the community ownership and this recognition that we all live here, you know, and we've all got a stake to play in this, we've all got a part to play in this. But be assured, the data may not show it. I recognise there's this perception that there's a lot more going on, and I'm sure there'll be questions or comment. But we're working hard, utilising the officers that we have and the time that we have to get out to the bus station and the town centre as often as possible, because it is this focal point of the town, and it's a place whereby we should all feel really proud of what it is. And that, if you move on to the next slide, opens up the floor to any questions again.
Thank you, Ben. Councillor Hennigan.
Yeah, hello, thank you for that again. Yeah, I mean, the bus station is something that has come up a lot because it's in my ward as it is Councillor Bones' ward. And it comes up again, and I think we often ask for it to be made a priority at SNAP because it's seen as an issue. But your data is saying something quite different. So yes, I can understand it could be down to perception. And the fact is that maybe there's people might see gangs of young people who are maybe just coming home from school or whatever and feel quite intimidated. I don't know, there's something about it. How do we change the perception? I mean, I'm not expecting you really to have an answer to this, but do we need to do some work around changing the perception of the bus station? Because there is a lot of, I mean, if I do lurk, maybe I shouldn't be saying this out loud, but I do spend a bit of time on social media sites. So you do hear what people say, and that is an issue that does come up. So
I think perception change happens over a period of time. We are the main part players in that, around dealing with the criminal aspects of it. There is as I call back to again, the youth issue that we had. That took time, that took effort. But ultimately, people grew up there and people fostered that ownership or moved out. In some cases, got girlfriends, boyfriends, and decided to do other things. What we're dealing with in the bus station is actually a lot of adults who are dealing with their own issues. There are still child and youth ASB as well, but dealing with them, it takes a lot more time, and it's different avenues that we need to go down to get the orders or otherwise to make some of the work possible. And equally, one could also argue that having high-vis police officers in the bus station every day contributes to that negative perception because the police need to be here. So it is a bit of a balancing act as well. But equally, talking about your point around making it a priority, at the moment, it is my priority for Lynn is whenever any officers have got any downtime, I ask them to go to the bus station. Downtime being a word that isn't used very often in policing at the moment. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Councillor Joyce.
Yes, Inspector, you and I will never agree on an incident that happened at the bus station. We both know which one we mean. But having said that, it's not just, you come back, keep coming back, it's not just the police. Yes, the police are there to deal with crime and to a larger extent to deal with antisocial behaviour. But the bus station is the gateway to the town for all the villagers and for all the people who come from many miles away. That's their gateway. And what do they see when they arrive? They see a bus station that belongs in the 1970s. It needs cleaning up. It needs a lick of paint to make it look new, presentable. On the scruffy kit, don't get me wrong, you know. But I know how it is to go into somewhere where you don't know where to go. You know, you want to go to the Corn Exchange. You've come from, I don't know, Coventry, you want to go to the Corn Exchange. How do I get there? I'll ask someone. Okay, fine. But it's still landed in the bus station, which belongs in the 1970s. It needs cleaning up, it needs a lick of paint, and yes, it could do with the police just walking through there every now and again and having a chat to whoever happens to be there. I mean, the big drawback was that the PCSOs were abolished in Norfolk. Now, they were called plastic police. They couldn't arrest anybody. But that was actually, in some areas, that was the strength, because people who were not totally virtuous would speak to them. They'd have a laugh and a chat to them, where they wouldn't. Because they might say something that they shouldn't. And if they said it to a police officer, they'd think, well, that police officer's got to arrest me, so I'm not going to speak to him or her. But with PCS, I can say what I like, you know, have a laugh and a joke, and maybe not be totally politically correct about it at the same time. And that was the strength of them. But on the bus station, it needs a real deep clean to make it look in this modern time. And of course, it wouldn't help if some of the buses were up to that standard as well. Most of them are, but not all. And that's where the major problem is. Yeah, you need a big sign. This is a toilet. You know, all right, I know where the toilets are. Most people here know where the toilets are on the bus station. But someone coming in from, you know, 10 or even 10 miles away won't know. And it is people who are, as a general rule, quite vulnerable, because that's why they're using the bus. You know, otherwise they'll get in the car and they'll drive and they'll park and they'll pay the council the money. But it is often generally people who are older. You know, the kids use buses, but people who are generally older, they do not like to see a gang of youngsters hanging around because they're going to attack them. Well, they're not actually going to. They're just doing whatever youngsters do. I mean, I can remember talking to a chief superintendent. We'd just come out of the police station and we'd actually been to see the licence and everything. And he said to me, you know, each Friday and Saturday night, you put a team outside the nightclubs. And he said to me, you know, if Aunt Mary comes walking down the road and sees all these police officers, he's got to think there's something wrong. And that's the issue. You know, it is about, someone said, perception. And the perception of the bus station, it belongs in another era. It does its job, but it belongs in another era. It needs cleaning up in more ways than just getting rid of the antisocial behaviour, which will be difficult. But again, you come back to your broken windows, you come back to Giuliani, clean the place up, make it look new, make it sparkle, and then things can be done. And my question to you is, how many times have you or your superintendent raised that with the council? How many times have you been absolutely honest and blunt with them?
Again, not going into the finer points of the discussions, but the discussions are had on a regular basis when we look to problem solve, when we look to do those things. I don't disagree. I think there is something around the visuals of the bus station. I think there's something around the designing out crime element of that. But again, you've effectively summed up in different ways some of my thoughts, which again is this partnership working is really key, and part of that is working with the council, which we are doing and we intend to continue to do.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Russ followed by Councillor Everett.
Thank you. Our borough council has a responsibility to clean some of the areas of the bus station, but the bus station ultimately is a travel hub for Norfolk County Council buses. There is bus service improvement funding, and we spoke with West Norfolk Community Transport when they were here delivering their presentation, and they spoke about BSIP money. Some of it does go towards adding new bus routes, but my understanding was there was the potential for a new travel hub and for our bus station to be redeveloped. There are complaints at the moment because there's some digging work, road improvement work, both at the train station and at the bus station. So there is work that's taking place, but I would say that all the buses are in pretty good nick actually, and they're kept well clean. But my understanding is that potentially there's some work doing to improve it, but it is joint work, some by the Borough Council, but a lot by Norfolk County Council. And we've said before, here isn't the forum necessarily for Norfolk County Council.
Thank you, Councillor West. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. So my query is on the statistics that you've shown on the presentation. Are these just incidents that have been essentially crimed, or are they ones that have been reported in NFAs, for example? That's the first one.
So in answer to that one, crime recording standard is such now that anything you see on there is something that's been recorded, and whether that be investigated or whether that be for whatever reason no further action from that point, there won't be any missing data around those that may not have got through the system because they've been NFA'd. The missing data may come, however, through underreporting and through people who these crimes happen to, and they don't call the police or don't call 101, don't use the online forum or anything like that. That's where the disparity of data will come from. And I recognise there may well be some of that. But in terms of crime recording, anything that we get a CAD to, as we call it, an incident to, will, if there's a crime occurred, will be crimed and then investigated to whatever level is dictated by victim support and whatever else.
Cool, thank you. What is your thoughts on, obviously we've got an empty building in the bus station at the moment. Obviously it's the old travel hub. As I understood it, it's a building that's the borough own, as I understand it. It used to be the old staff room for Norfolk Green. What's your views on kind of turning that into like, I don't know, a mobile police station sort of thing, or interview room sort of thing like that? And then obviously you can have more people on the beat, more visible presence.
I think, speaking candidly, first of all, you make an assumption I have people to put into there.
Okay.
And that's not to say that there aren't police officers wandering and doing the jobs in the town. However, realistically, when you look at officer safety, you'd need two to do that. And further to that, we've got to link up with CCTV into the station, into the office with the local policing team or otherwise. And it's a relatively short walk to come into the town or otherwise. So whilst the sentiment is a great one, I think in terms of if we were to take that building over, ultimately, those officers would also need to be deployed elsewhere. So they wouldn't be able to spend as much time as the outlay would expect them to.
And my last one, obviously I proposed a budget amendment to our budget where we were to look into the feasibility of getting our current parking attendant civil enforcement officers CSAS trained. Obviously I know that is, that would obviously be linked to the great partnerships we've got at the moment with the bid team. What was your views on having CSAS accredited people as an additional bodies or additional eyes in the bus station?
So I suppose it depends on what you would envision them doing. It's a difficult one to answer without seeing a proposal as to what you would expect them to be doing, because that would all have to be, again, assessed against risk and effectively also assessed against capability. for us to come and effectively take over any investigation which is started from an early stage. So I would certainly be keen to see it and to understand longer term what that might mean.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Camp on Standing Order 34, is there any further questions from the Chamber? Councillor Joyce.
Just to respond to Councillor Rust, it's a situation that, you know, the bus station is a 1970s child and it hasn't grown up, it's just grown old. And it doesn't matter who owns it. It needs to be pushed and pushed hard, that it needs cleaning up, it needs a lick of paint. And as for potential, well, there's a potential that I might have a date with a 19-year-old, but realistically, that's not going to happen. You know, you have to look at the real world, and whatever is going to come in the future may happen. But this is the world we live in right this minute, and it is past its sell-by date. And it's fine to blame the police, you know, for any problems that are going on. And, you know, that's an easy target. But it is about pinning it down and getting it right. It doesn't matter who owns it. I'm not 100% certain that the county council does actually own it, but I'll let it rest at that. But it is about chasing whoever the owner is and getting it cleaned up.
Councillor Joyce, this might be something we can do in the future, but our hands are a bit tied now, and I'd just like to remind you about the appropriateness of some of the language you just used.
Are you trying to conceal what was wholly inappropriate? Well, that is a possibility, but it's very unlikely. You know, I quite accept it's unlikely. Pardon?
Right language to use.
Whatever.
Okay.
Sorry, did you call me, Chair?
Yes, it did.
You did. Sorry, the sound wasn't. Well, yeah, it's about changing the atmosphere and the landscape and the layout of the bus station, because you've got lots of space there where people can congregate. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I went to Lincoln recently and they'd completely renovated their bus station area and they'd turned it into a cafe area with planters outside. And I think this has had an effect on reducing antisocial behaviour. It's just a thought, really, because it's not just the reputation of the bus station, but it's, you know, things that happen. And recently, somebody who lived in a village quite close to Lynn told me about a relative who was in her 70s or 80s who'd been assaulted by somebody in the bus station who'd asked for money, and the poor lady had ended up in hospital very seriously injured. And it's the thought that that can happen anywhere, but particularly in an area which is the gateway into Lynn. And quite a small space as well. I mean, could we be looking at volunteers who maybe, you know, come up to people and try and encourage people to be kinder or more helpful? And we've got the museum, which actually offers coffee mornings, and it's a warm space on Wednesdays to the end of March, and it's a safe space for people with disabilities and with Titan training. And it just seems that we ought to be able to do more to change the ethos and the feel of that bus station so that people want to help people in it rather than anything else. And I wondered about your thoughts on that, please.
Thank you. So there's a couple of bits there. I'll address them backwards because of the way I wrote them down. You talk about the volunteers. Effectively, kind of what you've just described are the street rangers. Who effectively do exactly those things, that they don't have any police powers, and yet go around and encourage people to behave, and equally offer support to those who may need it in a variety of different ways, whether that be through mobility issues or through directions or getting around. I'm very much selling the street rangers short there, but that's some of the things that they do. In respect of the incident that you're referring to with the elderly lady, we've done quite a lot of investigation into that, and again, I think some of that comes around to general kind of perception Because actually, the more investigation we do, that's perhaps not exactly as it seems, as we work through that. But again, it's the difficulty we have is that's happened now. People have seen that. People have seen the police around, and people have understood that someone's been arrested. But actually, getting the news out afterwards that the investigation has got us to a point whereby it's not as dangerous and as concerning as it might seem. Perhaps not that example, but others. Sometimes it's very difficult to pull back, bring that balloon down once that balloon has gone up. And a final point, I do agree. Some of it is in the general kind of appearance, you know, and making it inhospitable for people to kind of hang around in. I mean, some of the problem solving that I've seen in the past is piping in classical music around bus stations to make it less desirable for those that don't like classical music, perhaps young people, perhaps that's a generalisation, but perhaps young people, or turning the Wi-Fi off, or making it coded. So that people can't sit there and use the Wi-Fi otherwise. So there certainly are avenues to explore. And we have designing out crime officers, and we have architectural liaison officers who work with us and work with the bus station, or as an example, to do exactly that. But it's ongoing. I think it's understanding what would work best in Lynn comparative to other places, and what works well in Lincoln may not translate to Lynn or otherwise.
So just to follow up, do you think that it's possible to formulate a plans of action to transform the bus station? Because what we've got now is old and tired, and it's not really working as well as it could. And it, in a way, seems to contribute to the antisocial behaviour that the particular layout we've got. So who would it be who should be informing that? It would be yourselves as the police, county and borough. But I mean, how would we get to that point? Because we've done a lot of talking about it and we know we need to change, but it's getting that as a project.
I think this comes back down to the data, if I'm totally honest. And actually, we're there with some perception around the crime and otherwise, but galvanising all of those agencies you've just spoken about by presenting the data that I presented to you, I think would prove a little bit of a challenge. Because again, while some of this is perception and some of this is local knowledge or otherwise, until there is an uptick in investigations or otherwise, it would be very difficult. But it's not something I perhaps will get drawn into around the political aspect of it. But ultimately, I would say the police would play a part in any of that, working with other people.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Councillor Kemp. I'm getting an overall feeling. Yeah, okay then.
Councillor Joyce is correct. The bus station is owned and maintained by Kings Lynn and West Norfolk Borough Council. So I stand corrected.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Russ, for the point of clarification. Just going back onto the feeling and the ambience of this, can we make recommendations to scrutiny panels? Because here's a feel that a piece of work for either R&D or E&C would really be beneficial for the bus station, and perhaps potentially that this could come forward as one of the town deal projects. The Riverwalk, most of the people don't use that, but they do directly go through the bus station and arrive at the bus station, and perhaps that would be better use of our funding, especially in the short term before we have to the inevitable happens. That this could be a future project. So if we can make a recommendation, we'd like to see that go to either ESC or R&D for a potential workshop project. As a reference. We can do it. Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, yeah, perfect. That's. Are we? Do you have a seconder for that? Yeah. Okay. So we have a seconder, and are we in agreement that the bus station should go to the forward working programme for the committees?
I just asked, Chair, does anybody know, obviously work going on there as we speak for 13 weeks, but what are they actually doing?
I've been waiting patiently, and I might be able to answer a lot of these questions.
Councillor Cole, yeah, I was literally coming to you. I hadn't noticed. Sorry for your patience.
Thank you. Yeah, I might be able to answer some of these questions. So, following my comments made at a previous CLAC meeting, I have had follow-up meetings with Norfolk County Council officers in relation to the bus service improvement plan. And as part of those discussions, I raised what I felt to be the very slow moving forward of works at the bus station. These delayed works have now started, and yes, it's meant to be taking 13, 14 weeks. It's £380,000 there or thereabouts that's being spent on changing the bus boards, as they call them, the flags, the bus flags, brand new digital signage, a fresh lick of paint all over, I'm told, getting rid of the pigeon poo. But this is not enough as far as I'm concerned. And I have expressed concern that when the next amount of BSIP money is available, which is bluntly now, that we as county councillors should be involved, as well as involving and speaking with the borough. At the moment, I found out last week at the Infrastructure and Development panel at Norfolk County Council, that decision as to where that money is being spent is being made by a very few people. And so we've asked whether or not that can specifically come to the Infrastructure and Development panel at Norfolk County Council, because I worry that our bus station has been forgotten at times, especially when you look at money that's been spent on bus stations in other parts of the county. Another example of West Norfolk being a little bit forgotten. So yeah, that hopefully provides a little bit of background, and I will be pushing for more information. Although it's not within my division, I'd like to stress, I am interested as my residents use it. So yeah, hope that helps.
Thank you. Oh, well. Did we do a vote on there? So we've had a proposal and a second. In fact, we recommend that this go on the third working programme for either the EC or R&D panel. So are we in agreement that this piece of work goes forward to make improvements? Agreed. Just show of hands. Thank you, Ben, for two comprehensive and lengthy presentations, and you did get a bit of a grilling. Thank you again for attending the meeting, and the work you're doing is really greatly appreciated.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Everett.
Just wanted to come back on the comment on what they're actually doing currently on the bus station. As I understand it, before, when they had tarmacked all of the bus laybys, the tarmac was sinking under the weight of all the constant buses. So a lot of the time it would be, they'd have to ramp up, and then they're sitting in a sinkhole, a mini sinkhole, for to example. So now what they're doing is, where all the buses sit in the laybys, they're putting concrete foundations to basically, when the bus is sat there, it's not pushing the tarmac down. And they're just doing that for all of the bus laybys, and then they're going to be doing that on the train station layby as well.
And I think that links to why there were delays, because there were bomb shelters found underneath some of the where the buses were, which was not helping with the sinking.
Thank you. Perhaps we could make some use of them as a tourist at a later date. So moving on to our committee's forward work programme. Does the committee have anything they would like to consider for a future work programme? Councillor Hannigan did have some on Lou. Councillor Corwell, we'll go.
Did you say my name, Chair?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I wanted to put on a suggestion for the forward work programme. Real concerns from local residents that they don't want Fairsted Centre Point becoming the new bus station with issues around antisocial behaviour. There is a suggestion that there might be an off licence opening in the area. I wanted to make sure that everyone on this panel was aware of that. and what, if anything, we should be doing, and whether we should be discussing that, because the number of concerns that I've had has been significant.
I think Councillor Colwell, it would be nice to be able to discuss that, but unfortunately that falls under licensing, so I don't think we could add that to our work programme. But we are, yeah, obviously Councillor Everett is very much aware of that and has been raising his concerns, but I don't think it falls into our panel. But what it might be prudent to, when it actually comes on the licence agenda, get it called in. So it has already been called in. So then you could probably make that representation at that panel. Councillor Joyce.
I understand to some extent why you wouldn't want to discuss an individual item such as Councillor Colwell has raised. But there are certain entertainments that are directed towards specific communities. Now, you won't have enough betting shops for me, but that doesn't mean to say certain communities should have a load of betting shops, same as they shouldn't have off licenses, you know, a large number. And looking at the wider context as what type of entertainment, whatever name you want to call it, should be in specific areas, and to what number there should be as well. That would be certainly well worth looking at. Like I say, Councillor Colwell, one individual might be going a little bit too far, but the broader context of the area. I mean, there has been major problems in some areas across the country with betting shops being opened up next door to each other, 6 or 7 in the one street. That was when fixed odds betting terminals were in good going gear. That has reduced, but it would be the same with off licenses and some other, you know, I don't know the phrase you call them, other venues. You know, should you have a load of slot machines in 3 or 4 venues in the one street? Those type of things are certainly well worth looking at for any prospective town council, whatever the potential is. But, you know, they should be on a forward programme. I understand you don't want the one, but it's actually the overall aspect of it, because 1 can soon become 2 and 2 can become 3. And whatever problems come with those venues will multiply. And it is strange how there's doctor surgeries, often in the more affluent areas, but not in the less affluent areas.
Again, I believe that I've just been referred that there is a policy within the licensing that will deal with this. So there is an opportunity. Councillor Everett has just shown me a letter, but he has actually called this in to be dealt with. So there will be the opportunity to make those representations. But thank you again for pulling it forward, Councillor Colwell.
I'll just be clear on this. Are you saying you just want to make representation to one particular issue, or you want to make representation on the wider issue of how many licensed venues that the council licenses should be in any specific area? Because that's really, I think, what Councillor Colwell is coming at. He wants, you know, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but he wants a policy from the councillors of King's Lynn as to where certain venues should be. Yeah, he and I will go to disagree on how many betting shops there should be in the high street. That's fine. But, you know, overall, that's the policy. And it's not just, yeah, the licensing committee may make a decision, but this committee should have its input into that policy at the beginning.
I'll seek to get better clarification on that to see if that is an issue and an opportunity for that to come forward. on a wider thingy, but I would need further clarification. Councillor Hannigan, we're doing the forward working programme. And yes, so, and I know you've had some items. I know you've put forward the town deal board, and we've got a presentation on the 19th of June for that. But I'm sure it was something which has slipped my mind, which I can't.
Sorry, there was, yeah, a couple of others. I think it was at a recent R&D meeting, they had a look at the King's Lynn parking strategy. It's still very much in its early stages, but I thought it would be quite useful if it came here whilst it was still in the early stages as well, so we could have some input into it, because really it affects all of our wards really. So and the other one was, I don't know whether it's appropriate or not, but we've got a new neighbourhood board being sort of set up and whatever, and I guess I think it's along with the town deal board as well, it's just an update on they might be able to work to be done at the same time, but it's just an update on what's going on, because the new money, the boundaries have been stretched, so it takes in, you know, North Lynn, South Lynn and various wards now. So, and I think we've all probably would be interested to find out what's going on with it really. So that was all. Okay.
Today at Cabinet, we heard that our local plan, no, our neighbourhood plan has been finalised. There are areas, sections in it which specifically relate to the unparished area of King's Lynn, and I wanted to know whether the councillors here wanted an update on the neighbourhood plan. I was advised to check with you because some of you will have been involved and seen lots of presentations in any case, but I thought it was worth an ask. And we also have waiting to be programmed, the Town Council and devolution. I have a meeting on that subject tomorrow, so potentially then there might be some further information. It might be easier to schedule it, but I'll wait and see.
Thank you, Councillor Rust. Yeah, I'm sure we agree that that would be very welcomed. So yeah. Okay, any further suggestions for the forward working programme? No? Thank you very much. The date of the next meeting will be held here in the chamber. It's the next meeting on Thursday, the 22nd of May, 2025, and that'll be at 5:15. I've already had apologies from Councillor Rust, so you've sent your apologies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll close the meeting.